not gonna work, so let.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Marino. I am president, owner of Freedom and Mobility. My daughter, Cassandra, right there, she does our administrative work, all the fun phone calls. And I will be speaking to you about driving and what we do at our facility, which is evaluate drivers and have sometimes the not so good situation to tell somebody that they maybe should consider other means of transportation. We put together a little presentation here. Our company covers a lot of ground in terms of what we do and our clientele and the population that we deal with. Let's see if we're going the right way. All right, let me start by saying there's a lot of these associations and all these are things that I never even thought existed. Obviously, these are the things that you don't know exist until you meet them. But we belong to an association called the Association of Driver Rehab Specialists. There's such a thing as a driver rehabilitation specialist, and you do have to go through a bunch of training and certifications to be able to. Is that not loud enough? Okay. So that's one of the associations. That's what governs our profession, and there's an actual ADET meeting every year, and it moves around the country. And there's actually quite there's chapters in every state of the union. The NEDA is one that works with the equipment. So anyone that is installing equipment, adaptive equipment into a vehicle, if they're not a NEDA vendor, then chances are they're not very good. I will stay away from that. The Occupational Therapists Association also is part of this because the therapists that see our clients are occupational therapists. They do look at the clinical aspect of the driver, and that's their certification. Okay. What do we do when we have a driver evaluation? Now, I'm talking in pretty broad terms here, but mainly who comes to us? Well, and why? What do we do when they come? Well, they come to us because there's either a problem with the access to the vehicle. A person has suffered an injury and they are now using mobility devices, wheelchairs, walkers, lost sensation in their extremities. Now they need to use other means to apply gas and brake to a vehicle, or they're just simply aging. And when we do a driver evaluation, this is what we do. During the clinical, we're going to assess their physical abilities, meaning if they are a wheelchair user, for example, or if they are a walker user, or they're just neuropathy is a very common symptom that we deal with. Well, if they don't have any sensation, how do we translate this need, this physical need, to now adapting the vehicle for them to use? Reaction time, vision, cognitive skills, these are more related to now the elder driver that is having other type of challenges. The clinical part, depending on the client, will probably take a good 2-3 hours. There's a lot of testing that goes into this. I'll have another slide that show a little bit of that. Our testing is science-based. We're not coming up with, okay, what sign is this? What sign is that? These are tests that are NHTSA certified. So these tests will give us at least an insight of what cognitive skills is the person dealing with or lack of. All of these results then are translated into setting up a vehicle for this person. Meaning, if the neuropathy, which again seems to be a very common condition, well, you're not feeling where your feet are. You're losing sensation on your feet, and well, now you don't know if your foot is on the gas or brake, for example. But this is a person that we can probably set up a car for and have them drive with hand controls. Very basic modification to a car, fairly inexpensive, and their driving can continue without a problem. Left foot accelerators. There's all kinds of things, and you'll be surprised of how much modification could be done to a vehicle for someone to drive, regardless of the disability, if the physical disability is harsh. So we have here, these are just some of our clients, but this is the type of client that we see, other than the older driver. Obviously, the older driver adult is why we're here, but I just wanted to give you an illustration of the spectrum and how wide this can be. Like, for example, this lady on the left, she suffered a spinal cord injury when she was in her early 20s. She drives from her wheelchair, she can't transfer, and so this vehicle that we have on the left is a wheelchair accessible van. It has a ramp so she can load herself into the driver's area and drive directly from her chair without having to transfer. This other lady, she's she has spinal muscular atrophy. So she was born, spinal muscular dystrophy, I'm sorry. Muscular dystrophy without spinal. She was born like any other child, and then, as she aged, these problems started to happen in terms of her ability to walk and just basic movement. And when this disease set in, she started to lose a lot of strength, and now she's wheelchair bound. So she drives with fully electronic equipment. She doesn't touch the steering wheel. With the left hand, she does gas and brake. With the right hand, she does the steering. Here are some of the examples of the equipment that we use: hand controls, pedal extensions, electronic gas and brake, fly-by-wire driving, which is what this gentleman is using. He's also spinal cord injury, broke his neck when he was 18, 19 years old. And again, drives from his wheelchair, doesn't touch the wheel. Here's an example of a hand control with a spinner knob. So this is the type of device this is mounted under the steering column. The car is, anybody can drive it, but you don't have to be disabled to use it. All you have to do is get in and drive it. The disabled person or the person using the hand control would have to activate the hand control, so it is operational for them. So you have the same vehicle that is usable by the able-bodied person and the person that isn't. Okay, so this is a little bit more into why we're here. What are the challenges that our older drivers face? And these are the things that we hear in our office all the time. These are the things that we think that you need to look out for. The slower reaction time, the decreased vision and hearing, flexibility, strength, range of motion too. That's something that a lot of times we see our older clients that have their neck rotation is compromised. They can't really check for blind spots. And now we have, nowadays with these new vehicles, a lot of help, technological help with all these blind spot detection systems and alarms, and cars that keep you in the lane and vibrate the steering wheel if you start to drift. Medications and the cognitive challenges that are affecting the judgment. Now, that's probably one of the biggest, I want to say, it's just such a broad situation when we have people with cognitive issues. I mean, you can be feeling fine one day and one day you're not. Typically, when we see a client that have a cognitive challenge, well, they generally don't want to be there. We're not, let's just say that we're not their best friend at the moment. But we try to really understand the situation and just guide the family and guide the person. I'm going to tell you right now that not an easy conversation when we're trying to really reason with someone that, they tell us all the time, look, I've been driving for 50 years, I've never had an accident. Why would I listen to you what are you saying that I don't already know? What they're neglecting is the fact that, yes, you've been driving 50 years, but you're now in a very difficult situation of, first of all, your reflexes, your reaction time is not what it was 30 years ago, or even more so. Getting lost, getting into this panic state, all these things are so, let's not discount the aggressiveness of our, today's drivers, the distracted driving, which is really making things a lot more difficult for all of us, for that matter. So these are the conversations that we have, and the families come to us with seeking some, I guess, answer. And I have to say that a lot of times the answers are what they don't want to hear, or at least the driver doesn't want to hear. There's a lot of equipment and a lot of things we can do to help and extend the person's driving abilities when the challenge is really based on equipment. When there's a cognitive situation, there's not really much we can do. Sometimes, depending on what the driver's need is, okay, so if we have someone that is having to commute to work, and their commute implies that they need to drive through downtown Atlanta, for example, maybe that's not a good solution for them. Now, if they're driving implies that they need to drive just back roads and just non-challenging situations, then maybe that's something that can be done. And it can be practiced and can be set into a finite situation. But again, many times that we have this type of client, this type of situation, the family has a concern, and the concern is generally a product of any of these things, like, hey, the tires on the car got smashed into the curb. The mailbox is gone. I can give you a litany of examples. So the concern is there. Well, what can we do? The person doesn't want to stop driving. We hide the keys. We took the battery out, and he had the car towed to a shop to put a new battery in the car. I mean, that kind of stuff is real, and people are really dealing with this. The unfortunate situation is that, particularly in this area, there's no easy answer for transportation. It's like, oh, well, take the bus. Well, good luck. If you find a bus, I don't know where it will take you, and probably it won't be anywhere near where you want to go. So the cessation of driving is a serious problem. And there's no easy answer. That is God's honest truth. But with, I guess, family support, community support, and hopefully there's some ability to overcome this, but it's certainly not simple. What can one do, well, to keep up? Because we do have success stories, we do have people that are able to continue driving under certain limitations, no highway driving, no night driving, that sort of thing. But this is what the family should monitor and should continue to stay on top of, is, checking vision, avoiding, this type of driving, night driving, following distance. These are just basic techniques. We do record our sessions. So because we have many instances where something happened and the client denies it, or, they took ran a red light, that kind of situation happens a lot. Didn't see a stop sign, or, so we record things and show them, like, yeah, you did wrong. It's right here. But, these are techniques that we can teach people, or remind them, I should say, on how to keep themselves safe, just basically extended driving possibilities. Yeah, this is the warning signs that are basic things that we all see, I think. One of the things that I'm most, I think of all of this that is most telling is the getting lost part. We've all, I think, heard stories of somebody ended up in another state, or ended up, because the getting lost part is terrifying for an older driver. It will send them into a spin, into a panic mode, and they just get disoriented. And disoriented driver then is going to be in trouble. It's going to do things that are unpredictable. And that's the kind of stuff that keeping a driver, an older driver that is able to continue driving, in fact, keep them into a controlled area and just understanding you're going from point A to point B, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to deviate from this routine. You can extend their driving life. Also, we recommend the family look, keep a tracker on them. Keep them with a cell phone. If they don't, some of them don't have a cell phone. Some of them still have flip phones. They just refuse to have a smartphone. Well, put a tracker in the car, put a tracker in the keys. These are things that we can suggest and just get creative with technology and try to help them out. But the truth is, the panic situation is not something, I mean, you want to avoid that at all costs. Just back to the screening. The screening is something that, again, it's based on some science. We do have testings that are directed precisely to test the person's cognitive skills. They take, a lot of times, they take a few hours. Have you guys ever heard of the clock, drawing a clock, an analog clock? One of the tests is as basic as drawing a circle and setting up the hour at 11 and the minute hand at 15 minutes. If I showed you some of those clocks, you go like, wow. I mean, how can our mind just go off so much? And that's one of the things. It's as simple as that is. It's something that tells a lot on what the cognitive skill of the person is. We do have tests such as the reaction timer, which is something that does tell us a lot about the driver as well. How quickly can they react when they see an object jump in front of them, from gas to brake. It's timed, and those are also things that will allow us to determine, well, I mean, if you're doing this in the classroom, and here you're technically on your best behavior, because you're being tested, then if these things are flags, then we know we're in for a ride. Some training can also be recommended. That's seldom, I have to say, unless there's equipment involved. Again, there's times that we can supplement the physical impairment with equipment, and that's kind of like the easy solution or the easy client. So maybe some training can be helpful. And when a lot of times we have the family member bring the parent, and they tell us right out of the gate, oh my God, he's scary. He's going to get in an accident, and I mean they already know, but they just don't have. A lot of times the child or the parent or the family member doesn't have the courage or the heart to tell this person to stop driving, and they use us as the way to tell them. And look, that's fine. We're not going to tell them they can or can't drive. We're going to be honest on our assessment, 100%. I mean, hopefully that is the result that will keep everybody safe. Because at the end of the day, that is the goal, is to avoid a possible accident, and the consequences of that, which is terrible. All right, this is kind of like the approach to this conversation. I mean, we do try to keep things as respectful and caring as possible, because we are, in fact, dealing with persons freedom to some extent. We do express the concerns specifically to what we noticed with when we have a person not do so well with the cognitive skill tests and all in clinic. These are things that are noted, but we don't stress the fact, we don't want to set them up for failure. We won't, these are things that we already know as a clinician. Okay, this is what we're going to be dealing with. Now let's take them on the road. And these are the concerns in whatever situation arises from the behind the wheel, it's what we'll really focus on. And 9 times out of 10, the cognitive and the clinical results do tie into the on the road results. So we can really just make a case for cessation of driving if that's the case. The difficult ones are the ones that actually do terrible in the clinical, but do great on the road. And we'll go, okay, the daughter doesn't want dad to drive anymore. He drove great. How can I tell him that he can't drive or should stop driving? But he drove great, although the clinical part was terrible. So that is really the one that situation is the one that I detest the most, because although I know that cognitively this person should stop driving, I can't tell him that he did anything wrong behind the wheel. And that happens more than I care to admit, actually. But those are the situations where we have to think about, okay, what kind of driving are you going to be doing? Is this something that we can somehow figure out to keep you in a very controlled environment and maybe extend your driving? And we can also, we are one of the companies that has access to, we can't we can't say, write the DMV and say this person should not drive. That's not our business. That's not our job. That's something that we also start with. Because when we get clients that generally are pretty nervous and they are, rightfully so. It is nerve-wracking for them, but we tell them we're not the police. We don't work for the police. You're hiring us to give you an honest assessment, an expert assessment, and that's what we're going to do. However, we do have access to the DMV because we are one of the registered companies to provide this type of service. And we can request the DMV to place restrictions on someone's license, such as no night driving or no highway driving. Those are the things that we can ask the DMV to place on the person's license. But another issue is that a lot of times the older driver is not going to listen. It's not, look, you should not drive at night and you should not drive on the expressway. Well, that doesn't mean that they will. I had a client one time that we told her, look, we can't drive anymore. You need to stop driving. Next thing we knew, his daughter called us to tell us he was under arrest for driving. So what do you mean? I thought he took his car away. He was driving his lawnmower. So, that happens. And he wanted to drive, and he did. Police officer stopped him, like, what are you doing? Oh, I don't even know where he was going. He was just driving. That was engagement, by the way. Yes, sir.
What's the text in the bright yellow box? It's hard to read.
Oh, yes. Public transportation. It's actually green here. Community senior transportation services, walking or cycling for short distances, Ride sharing is probably one of the biggest things, but it gets expensive. Okay, so for example, right here we have offered alternative transportation solutions. Well, there aren't many of those, unless you are really in an urban area. I live in Woodstock. I can tell you, if I want to take any kind of public transportation, I have to walk 6 miles to the nearest possible stop of anything. Okay, well, that was it. Any questions? Anybody?
The comfort care.
Yeah.
You take it to places.
We do, yeah. So we can,
Oh, that one line. So your service, if our Scott needs to go somewhere.
Right.
And he wants to go from his Cobb County home out to Lake Alatoona to watch the sailboat races and come back, we can hire you for a 4 or 5 hour window to take him and bring him back.
All of home care companies can do that, so it's not just us. Some other home care companies, I know they have lower minimums. So like, some have 2 hours, some have no minimums, but usually when they don't have, when they have lower minimums, it's gonna get pricier on an hourly basis, right? Another one that I always recommend sometimes is Neighbor Force. Neighbor Force can do transportation, companionship, only if there is no personal care. So the definition of personal care from the state is if you need to touch the person, it's personal care. So with Neighbor Force, if your loved one are still able to drive, I mean, so able to walk independently and stuff like, don't need to be touched or anywhere like that, you can use Neighbor Force. The Neighbor Force usually is, you know, has like an hour of limit or minimum. So they can be a good one too.
And it's NABOR,
Neighbor, yep, NABOR, Neighbor Force. Other question?
This affects driving ability, but I've noticed that if I was asking someone for directions, they say go to Smith Street, make a right, and continue to the church, make a left at the Exxon station, etc. I can do up to about 3, maybe 4 things, but just because you can't remember that doesn't mean you're not a good driver.
Absolutely.
It affects your driving
Yes,
capability.
absolutely. And look, that's actually one of the tests is precisely to give multiple step directions or ask for multiple directions for the climb. Like, look, when we get to the next traffic light, make a left and take an immediate right. It's just to see if they can remember these 2 steps. We don't do multiple, I mean, more than 2 steps at a time, but it does test. Now, here's the thing. When we have these multiple directions, if they do miss one of the turns, what we are really observing is, okay, you missed your turn. How do you recuperate? Because a lot of times that's what triggers the event, if you will, where, oh crap, I missed my turn. And I mean, I've had people that start making a U-turn and you know, and go over the median because they missed the turn. So how do you recover from a mistake? It's really what we're actually testing. If you can drive, I mean, put a full tank of gas and you make a mistake and miss your turn and you can continue driving with no event, I mean, look, that's okay. But how do you react when you make a mistake? I guess does that make sense? What do you do when you make a mistake? I can give you the example I always give. I had a client one time. She was 17, 18 years old, and she was paralyzed on one side. And she was paralyzed because she was in a car accident where her friend that was driving missed her turn, missed her exit. And she was on Highway 41, Cobb County, she missed her exit, so she decided to put the car in reverse. And they were rear-ended, and she suffered a brain injury and paralyzed on one side for life. So, I mean, what do you do is what I'm saying. What do you do when you make a mistake? Because your reaction to that mistake actually will tell us a lot on what your driving skills and what your deduction and what are your steps to correct that error.
Yes. I have a question. I'm curious how smartphones and GPS weave into the testing that you do. Because Lord knows I can't remember 3 turns ahead. I'm so dependent on my phone just to get anywhere. I just have it on. So I'm just curious nowadays with technology, I don't feel like many of us are really cognitively engaged necessarily when we're driving right now.
That is true. Well, I mean, those are definitely tools that will aid a driver. Like I was alluding earlier, for example, you know, your lane departure features, blind spot detection systems, and directions, spoken directions will help somebody obviously navigate and do whatever they need to do, and will extend probably their ability to drive. But the problem is, again, if you make a mistake, are you going to be able to let this thing recalculate and take you around and give you a different route? Or are you going to panic? I had a client, he was taking his, I think he had a Kia or something. He was taking it for service in Kennesaw. He missed his turn, and his family was like, where is Bob? What happened to Bob? And Bob was all the way in Rome. In Kia of Rome, because he just said, I want to go to Kia. Well, there's multiple Kias, and he just kept driving. But, you know, I mean, I think technology will help and does help actually. And some of the suggestions we've done is like, look, if you can keep a car, because now a car also will brake for you if you don't stop. It will stop the car if you're about to hit another vehicle or alert you if there's an obstacle in front of you. So technology is definitely playing a major part here. And some, you know, Teslas have this semi-self-driving car that will pretty much take you anywhere you want. So it is definitely a help.
So I got a question. So we heard a lot about like how to take away the keys or sometimes take away the batteries. Are there any other effective ways or options on how to, you know, take the driving away from your loved ones?
Well, hopefully, yes. I find that the reasoning and the honest conversation generally does the trick. Basically, speaking with somebody, you know, I mean, I don't want to speak of an older person as if they were demented, completely, you know, unhinged, because it's not the case. The great majority are actually, they're not liking the conversation, but they accept the fact that, yes, it's true. Because one of the things I tell them, look, and again, I keep going to examples because I've been doing this for 20 years. I could really write examples for every possible scenario that you can imagine. I had an older man who said, I'm here today because I was picking up my granddaughter from kindergarten, and the little kid that stands up there with the little stop sign, well, he came up and stopped me, and I didn't know if my foot was on the gas or the brake. And, you know, I mean, that's the kind of thing that if you're really thinking, I mean, I can only imagine how terrifying this was for this man. I mean, he came and look, if you don't find a solution for me, I am the one that's gonna throw those keys away. I don't wanna drive again. I don't want to be the one that caused all this damage, you know, just because I'm too stubborn to understand that I'm aging, you know, we all are. Lucky for him, his thing was neuropathy, so we just, you know, put hand controls and off he went. He said, you know, if I had known this before, I would have done this 2 years ago. So the conversation, again, as long as it isn't, if the person is cooperative, I have plenty of arguments to really expose the situation where it is, again, a delicate, difficult conversation, but also something I've told people, look, you've worked all your life to get to this point. And because I'm telling you that you should not drive, you continue to drive and cause somebody harm or damage, they're going to come after you and they're going to clean you out. So, you know, I mean, it's not worth it. It really isn't. So that generally, we get some people to understand.
Thank you for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Could you talk about the process to engage with your company and what the costs are? And part of the reason why I'm asking that is we had a neurologist refer my uncle to a occupational therapist
Okay.
for the driving.
Okay.
And I think because Medicare was gonna pay for it. And he ended up not going.
Okay.
And I do think that if there was some cost, that he knew he was going to lose some money, that also may be a motivating factor. So anyway, just, that's kind of the context of why I'm asking, but, I have several people I'd like to bring to you, so.
Okay, well,
Let me add, because I was channeling Tracy.
Okay.
My question, she was channeling me. So in that same presentation part of how do we get to you, is that something that we can, say, we need you to go here and take this test? Or is it a doctor's prescription, or is it a referral?
Good question.
How do we get to you?
yes. Okay, so the process is initiated generally by a family member. And we get also a lot of referrals from neurologists. So there is the process is very simple. Cassandra is actually the one that will answer the phone, and she will kind of guide you through the steps where there's a referral form that we need to fill out. And then we also ask her for a medical, basically summary. Why are you here? But let's let the doctor also tell us. Sometimes we have self-referrals, look, I'm not going to the doctor, this is the problem I'm dealing with, and that's okay too, but we also like to know from a medical point of view, what is happening. And once all these things are all in place, the cost of the evaluation for both clinical and on the wheel is $690. People ask, well, does insurance cover it? The answer is no. I have gone back and forth with this, I know some people in the insurance business, and basically what they say is that driving is not a medical necessity. End of story. I would love to know what they're gonna do when they have to, stop driving, because where are you gonna go? Not many options. Yes.
I was gonna add, John, to your question, though, about, we use freedom and mobility for my brother, who has autism and was born with an intellectual disability, and my parents are deceased, so he had a couple odd accidents, before that, so we wanted the peace of mind to pay for his, to make sure he was safe to be on the road. But taking that advice to say, hey, your siblings think you need to go here, was not gonna be well received. So we, in good faith, said that his car insurance company was seeing this pattern and required us to go and get him tested. So that's what we did.
But we can just call you.
Yes, you can just call, and also, to add, before we move to another question, if we do have situations like, well, I'm paying insurance, I have insurance, why can I not get reimbursed? And this is something that we tell everybody, we don't work with insurance, we don't file insurance, but if the doctor is making this recommendation, which a lot of them do, there's a portion of this that is done by a clinician, which is an occupational therapist. Therefore, is a doctor's order. Maybe they will not pay the full amount, but you can at least have, you have a claim. You have the ability to tell them, this was ordered by my doctor, and this is the person that provides the service. And he is a clinician, or she. So maybe you can at least get that part covered. Another point is that we partner with what used to be the CAP Medical. That's way in the CAP County, but they do file insurance, and they do the occupational therapist part of the evaluation. That will then be covered by insurance. And then they refer the client to us for on the wheel. That's another avenue, not a very comfortable one, but it will be save you some money. Yes.
Do you go to the client or does the client come to you?
We do go to the client when there is training involved, but generally for at least the evaluation, we ask the client to come to us. And the reason being, an older driver, you have to take them out of their setting, at least for the evaluation portion. It provides a little more of a, let's call it sterile environment. If the family, the dog, the cat, and everybody is involved, it just doesn't flow. That's been the experience. Now, we do travel, I mean, we do cover the whole state, but when we have to provide for training, because the training that, yeah, we can do it in your area. There's no point in training you to drive on Cobb County or Cobb Parkway and Bear Parkway and all this madness when, you live in, I don't know, some rural area.
So where are you?
Our office is in Marietta. Yeah, so yeah, we throw people out into the jungle there, Cobb Parkway. Yeah, we're right, very close, yeah, about 10 minutes away.
Just want to clarify what you just said about the doctor note, because I know with
Yes.
my dad, he would probably rather, not that he's gonna want to do it at all, but I would drag him, having the doctor know would probably not be a good thing, because going on record,
Right.
So we can just call, schedule the appointment. I just thought when talking to you, we were saying
Well,
you had to have it.
especially for the older drivers, we do require a doctor referral every time.
Okay, that's different from what you said.
Yeah, well, what she's saying is, if we have a medical condition, we need to get, well, I mean,
Like, what if you're old?
well, I mean, that's what, I didn't say that if we have just an older driver, their only sin is that they're old. I mean, there's no reason to go to the doctor for that. We're all getting old. But if there is if they're being treated for any particular reason, for any aging related situation, then yeah, the doctor's involvement is recommended. And the reason being that should the recommendation be to stop driving, the doctor is really the one that will report this to the DMV to have the license suspended or revoked.
So what you're saying is you come by yourself, bring it up there, and you decide you should be driving. If you don't have a doctor involved, if you go nowhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, like I told you, like I said earlier, we do not report people to the Department of Driver Services. However, if you're coming to us, it's in all honesty that, I mean, you are trying to be tested and you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to, just go through the possibility of maybe not being able to drive anymore. So, I mean, that conversation needs to be flipped around. All right, why are we doing this? What if the results are not what we are expecting? And if that's the case, then, like I said, we have no avenue to remove this person from the road. But with that said, also, well, we should not be driving. Now, and this is the scenario that I paint and gets people attention. Okay, well, let's say that we told you not to drive. And you came voluntarily, by the way, no one forced you. You came to get our opinion. Now, the answer you're getting is not what you wanted. Well, I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Well, what if you continue driving and you are involved in an accident? Somebody just told me that Georgia is the most litigious state in the union. I thought Florida took the cake, but apparently Georgia beat them to it. That's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. Everybody is trying to rip everybody out. And a road accidents are just terrible. I mean, these are things that people get hurt and we're gonna look for answers. And if you have that recommendation to stop driving on your record, but that's not gonna help.
I would
would like to make a comment, and I heard you talk a little bit about neuropathy.
Mhm.
And so my partner has neuropathy and also hearing loss. And I think those are two issues that people really need to pay attention to. Because he just restored a 1974 BMW 2002, which he's had for 40 years.
Oh,
And in the last 5 years, a lot of time and energy went into it, and he tested drove it when I wasn't there recently. And he came to his own conclusion that he can no longer drive that vehicle. His daughter sent special moccasins to wear, doesn't make any difference. So he's come, thank God, to the conclusion that he won't be able to drive that car. It's not gonna get rid of it, but it's not gonna drive it. But also the hearing loss, I noticed. We had a, cheap version of the hearing aids at first, and then upgraded, but I can tell you that being in the car with someone who's not hearing correctly is more of an issue than people realize.
yes.
So pay attention to hearing loss, because if you can't hear the ambulance, the sirens, the horn honking, or just the general traffic noise that makes you react to traffic, and something you were talking about, the devices in cars, the new cars, if it's an older person, they need an older car, not a new car. Those drive-wise that Allstate, I'm in the insurance end of the business, and Allstate and some of the devices that you put into the OB2, whatever, to read the driving habits. No, don't do that to an older person. It's like microwaves going off in the car. No, you don't need any more bells and whistles and noises and shaking steering wheels. I mean, that's just ridiculous for an older person.
Yeah.
Give them an older car with just the basic stuff. Get them a Garmin with a home button on it and not anything they have to mess with, and a lot of other technology in the car. But don't try to correct their driving, just, with devices, with more technology is not the answer.
Yes, I understand. And then that's true. That's a very good point, because we have had situations where the car is actually, instead of helping, is interfering. But it all falls back into training. And really making the person understand and prepare them for, look, this is what's going to happen when you do this, and when this car does this is the alert that it's telling you, and this is what it's supposed to do. It all comes into how flexible. We have older people that are extremely easy to learn. I have had 20-year-olds that I try to train them with hand controls, and it is impossible. And I have had 80-year-olds that they take to it like they just have been doing this all their life. So some people are trainable, some people aren't. This technology in new cars, it is helpful for the right person. But some, oh my God, no, yes, you're absolutely right. It will drive them crazy. It will scare them at you. Yes.
I noticed that people say something like, they come out one, people Georgia don't drive that.
I believe that.
But in all seriousness, we were coming here tonight on the street, which is semi-residential, it's like a thoroughfare. And the person behind us didn't think that driving the speed limit was the right thing to do. They tried to pass 2 or 3 times. That, to me, is something that, as you get older, I think, driving defensively might suffer because you maybe become more cautious or timid, if you will. And that's a bad thing. There are not enough officers to police the situation, but that's a normal passive that we have a lot. And yet we see it all the time. And when you're on a curvy road or hilly road, that's inviting disaster, because it's like you shoot a bottle with one bullet and maybe you'll be like,
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. The aggressiveness, the nature of the aggressiveness of the drivers nowadays is really just going, and it's the volume, and I mean, there's a lot of cars, the traffic is really, really insane. There's a part of the federal government state offices called vocational rehabilitation services. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but, well, they have, I speak Spanish, so I get to go to Puerto Rico quite often. The clients that we train, evaluate and train here that are from Puerto Rico, they get a double training, because when I train them here, licensed, ready to go, they have their car, it's all set up, I don't have to do anything, but I always request additional training in Puerto Rico, because if you think the drivers here are bad, Puerto Rico is doing pretty good on that department. Yes.
I understand you say that if a person becomes a verifiable threat to others on the highway, that the only way that they can get their license taken away other than a series of accidents is to go to a doctor and have an evaluation.
Yes, well, the doctor is the one that will initiate the license revocation. Unless you're having your license taken by a police officer for the reasons that you're mentioning, accidents, things of that nature, but typically a doctor is the one that is involved in the whole thing. There's a Department of Driver Services called Medical Review Board. That is the entity that will actually, they have a board of doctors that will evaluate each situation and make the determination whether the person should or should not continue driving, based on this person's doctor's recommendations. That's the department that we speak to. There's, I think, Shepherd's Farm Center, us, and I think that's it. That when, for example, this, this whole area of service has expanded in many directions, but for example, if we have an older driver that will need adaptive equipment, well, they need to be reviewed by the medical review board, as, even if they still have a valid license, because now the endorsements on their license need to state that they're using adaptive equipment. The medical review board will request them to be retested with this equipment. They have to go and do the parallel parking and, interesting conversation, like, I'm 80 years old, what am I doing, with all these 16-year-old kids taking the road test? But you gotta take the test, you gotta parallel park, you gotta put on the signal, stop at the stop sign, all that good stuff. But that's the same department that will make the determination whether someone's license should be revoked.
So we have time for one more question. Okay.
Okay.
So that, I guess this is getting me thinking, I'm a shifty insurance agent, I'm practicing. But where's the fine line with HIPAA in some of this when you're talking about medical record?
Yeah. Well, we do have to definitely go with the HIPAA, all the HIPAA laws. We have to use the software and save all that stuff and keep it very private. The conversation, again, when we are hired to provide the service, it's between you and I. We're not allowed to divulge this information to the Department of Driver Services unless you give us written permission. Now, there's many questions into the insurance part, but I can tell you, for example, people say, well, should I tell my insurance agent now I'm using hand controls? And I can tell you that something, again, these are things that are so dependent on insurance, are so dependent on the relationship that you may have with your agent, and it's on your record. But for example, the restriction on the license then implies that you can't drive if you have neuropathy and you want to drive, I don't know, fly to Seattle and rent a car. Well, your license states that you need to use hand controls. You can't use your feet, and if you are in an accident, again, there's a lot of yes, a lot for sure.
Thank you very much. For next month, so the month of March, the next meeting will be on March 20th, and the topic will be responding to challenging behaviors of Alzheimer's and other dementias. Angelia Brigance, She's the executive director at the Arbor Terrace at Burnt Hickory, but she's also a dementia specialist. I think she's a PhD.
And an author, yeah.
Yeah, and an author. So she's a really well-known dementia specialist. So she'll be talking about this topic next month. So hopefully we'll see a lot of you next month. Thank you again. Thank you very much. Have a good night.